transmission capability that's modern, that moves what we need to produce to the load centers that are going to need the product. You can't do it without deciding that Carlos is going to have the same kind of plug-in that General Motors and Toyota and Honda are going to have on their vehicles, because if you got consumers out there buying cars without standards with respect to the plug-ins and so on, you've got lots of problems. And let me just make a point, because I feel like it. The issue of trade. Korea, as you know, South Korea has 98% of its cars on their streets are made in South Korea. Why is that the case? Because that's the way they want it to be. Now, they ship us 800,000 cars last year, and we were able to ship 4,000 cars into Korea. It's not exactly my notion of being fair to American business. So part of the response of American business is to stand up and insist on fair trade laws in other countries as well. Today I'm a little bit disappointed in that yesterday's paper has our president on the defensive in China, when China has a $260 billion trade surplus with us, and we're on the defensive? I mean, excuse me, something's wrong with that. So I just wanted to make the point that, look, I think this is a great and an important discussion, and I think ultimately the consumer will make the judgment about where this country goes. But from the standpoint of public policy, we can set the stage for it with a wide range of tax credits and other things. We've done that in other areas. If we do the right thing, we can decide to initiate and encourage the kind of change, because from a national security and an economic security standpoint, that this country really does need going forward, in my judgment.
Great. I know we have a lot of knowledgeable people in the audience, and I'd like to open the floor. And please raise your hand, identify yourself, and direct your question. Go right ahead, right there. Yeah.
Smart Grid today. I have two quick questions, mostly for. Do you need this? Sorry. Mostly for Mr. Corsell. I'm Brett Brune from Smart Grid today. You mentioned that FERC needed to be much stronger. What exactly does need to happen there, and how exactly can it happen? And the second question is, you mentioned the need to incentivize utilities. So again, how can that happen and quickly?
So given that I'm sitting next to the head of FERC, I'll keep my comments general, simply to say that I think that there is a lot more understanding of smart grid, of the technology on the horizon and the technology that's here today relating to the electrification of transport. There's a lot more knowledge at FERC, at NERC, here in the federal government than there is on a state-by-state basis. I spend a fair amount of time traveling around the country meeting with public utility commissioners. Many of them are really quite impressive folks and are really trying to grasp what's coming. But if we really want to, over the next 5 or 10 years, scale things like smart grid, scale things like smart electric cars, in my view, strong FERC and strong federal leadership around standards, around recovery mechanisms for utilities is very, very important, because the utility industry is regulated so locally, and it's so fractious. And I think a lot of that just needs to stop. I don't think we have the time as a country for that anymore, personally. And on the, could you remind me the second question?
What needs to happen to incentivize utilities, and quickly?
Great. Well, take, for example, the Save-A-Watt program that Duke Energy, Jim Rogers, has gotten passed in a couple of states. I think it's South Carolina and Ohio, out of Duke's 5 states, enabling utilities to, in effect, make money by embracing energy efficiency, by embracing electric cars, giving them a clean path to rate basing and earning on charging infrastructure is very important, because there's a lot of uncertainty in and around utilities. They don't want to make a bet, make the wrong bet, and then have those investments disallowed by their commissions. Utilities need our help to have the backbone to invest very heavily in the infrastructure that we need, sort of echoing what Senator Dorgan was saying. And again, I think that is going to come from strong federal leadership, and I think it's going to come from strong leadership in a handful of enlightened states, but I don't think there are enough of those.
Go ahead. Tom, if I can make a point about FERC. I think FERC needs backstop authority for siting high-voltage lines in order to build the modern transmission system we need. In the last 9 years...
What does that mean, backstop authority?
Well, in the last 9 years, we have sited and built 11,000 miles of natural gas pipeline. we've built 660 miles of high voltage transmission lines that cross states, interstate. You can't do it because you've got so many different jurisdictions that can say no. In the planning, pricing, and siting, which is the requirements you have to do, we need to give FERC backstop authority to site after the planning and the pricing and things have been done. If you can't get the assent to proceed, then we should give FERC the backstop authority to provide that consent, because that's the only way you're going to build what you need is a national system to move power where you produce it, from where you produce it to the load centers that are going to need it.
Thank you. Dan Becker.
Hi, I'm Dan Becker, and I'm the director of the Safe Climate Campaign working on fighting global warming. Mr. Ghosn, this is to you. If we're going to have clean electric cars, as Tom Friedman said earlier, we're going to have clean power plants. Does this mean that the auto industry will join with the environmental community in fighting to clean up power plants? And how will you do it?
Well, first we need to concentrate to bring the electric car first. I mean, that's the most important. That's the most important element. Now, you know, when you compare well to wheel, in every single case, the electric car, when you couple it with nuclear power, wind power, solar power, hydroelectric, anything which is around these lines, you're practically at zero. I mean, this is the first time you can have a mass transportation which is practically at zero emission with, you know, substantial source of energy. You know, we can give you the example of France. France has 70% of its power made of nuclear. That's why the French government is absolutely pushing towards electric cars and putting every kind of incentive, because for them it makes a lot of sense. Now, when you go to China or India, where 80% of the power coming from coal or coming from fuel, the balance from well to wheel is still much better than gasoline engine, still much better than diesel engine. It's worse than the most modern hybrid technology, okay? But you are still better, even with coal, than the normal combustion engine, than the normal diesel engine. You're just worse than the hybrid, okay? But so obviously we have every single interest into supporting all the activities in order to make the zero emission from well to wheel, supporting, you know, moving the power to less CO2 emitting power. But, you know, at the same time, we don't want to give the impression that it's electrical versus internal combustion. It's electricity versus oil. It's not, because you're going to need both for a very long time. You know, when we say in 10 years, 10% of cars will be electric, it still means that 90% of the cars are going to be still running on oil, and we're going to be, as car manufacturer, continue to develop technology, internal combustion engine, diesel engine, you know, hybrids, etc., because we know that demands for these products are going to still be there. But we would be happy to support any move towards making electric car really clean from well to wheel.
Just to add that I think one of the benefits we see in electric vehicles as a method of storage is that ability to store electricity works, I think, complementary or synergistically with some of the characteristics of the renewable energy development, makes the renewable energy sort of worth more and provides more incentives for renewable energy. So I think the investment in the Recovery Act in battery technology and other things, in addition to the energy security benefits and other things, I think also helps to support the renewable development of renewables.
Anybody else out there? Please, all the way back. Wait for the mic.
Thank you. I'm Peter Fox-Penner. I wonder if any experts on the panelists could update us on what could be an arcane question, but I think is quite important in the evolution of this technology. Some electric cars charge on ordinary household voltage, and some platforms charge on double ordinary household voltage, or 220, 240 volts. That requires rewiring circuits that are normally there. That's quite an expense for a lot of the utilities who are looking at this. So perhaps some of the manufacturers or others could update us. I think this is important in the roadmap.
I think that you should think about electric cars charging on three different bases. 110 volts is what is throughout your house or apartment.